Right now, somewhere above your head, a computer is running an artificial intelligence in orbit. Not in a movie, not in 10 years, today. And the company that builds your rockets, Elon Musk's SpaceX, just filed a plan to launch up to 1 million more. 1 million data centers in space. If that sounds insane, that's the right reaction. So let's actually break it down. What they're building, whether it's even possible, why anyone would put a computer in the most hostile place we know, and how on earth you'd keep it running when it's not on Earth at all. Here's the part most people missed. In January of 2026, SpaceX quietly filed a request with the FCC to launch as many as 1 million solar-powered satellites. But these aren't communication satellites like Starlink. Each one is a data center, a computer in orbit. Then, on June 8th, they showed the first piece of hardware. They call it AI-1. It has a wingspan of about 70 meters, wider than a passenger jet, and it can deliver around 150 kilowatts of AI computing power. Musk's description was almost a shrug. He said it's much simpler than a Starlink satellite, and SpaceX isn't alone. This is a race. Google announced Project Suncatcher, a plan to fly its own AI chips, called TPUs, into orbit. Amazon's Blue Origin revealed a constellation of around 5,400 satellites. The gold rush has already started. The only question is whether the gold is real. Your instinct is probably that there's no way this works. Except, it already does. A startup called StarCloud launched a satellite in November of 2025, carrying a single NVIDIA H100, one of the most powerful AI chips on the planet. In orbit, that chip ran Google's Gemini model, and it even trained a small language model from scratch, in space. That one result changed the conversation. Investors poured in until StarCloud hit a $1.1 billion valuation, making it one of the fastest startups ever to become a unicorn. So the question stopped being, can a computer run in space? It can. The new question is far more interesting. Why would you ever want it to? To understand this, you have to understand the problem AI has created back on Earth. Training modern AI models burns through staggering amounts of electricity and cooling. Data centers are projected to consume over 1,000 terawatt-hours of power. They're straining power grids and drinking rivers of water just to stay cool. We are running out of room, power, and water to feed the machines. So a few engineers asked a wild question. What if we just left? In space, two problems solve themselves. First, power. There's no atmosphere to block the sun, and in the right orbit, a satellite can sit in sunlight 24 hours a day, every day. Unlimited, free, uninterrupted solar power, with no power grid required. Second, and this is the part everyone gets wrong, cooling. People assume space is freezing, so cooling must be easy. The truth is stranger. Out here, there's no air to carry heat away. The only way to dump heat is to radiate it into the dark, which means cooling in space isn't free at all. It's actually one of the hardest engineering problems in the entire plan. Hold that thought, because it comes back to bite us. Building a data center on the ground takes years of concrete, steel, and permits. Building one in orbit looks completely different. You start by stacking flat, simple satellites inside a rocket. And this is exactly why SpaceX has the advantage. They own the cheapest rockets in the world. Each satellite unfolds enormous solar wings to catch the sun and feed the chips inside. Then comes the clever part. Instead of beaming data through the air, the satellites talk to each other with lasers, called free space optical links, stitching hundreds or thousands of them into one giant computer spread across the sky. Google's vision is clusters of dozens of satellites flying in formation, kilometers wide, acting as a single machine. No buildings, no land, no water, just sunlight, silicon, and light-speed lasers. Here's where it gets genuinely hard, and where the dream meets reality. There are no engineers in orbit. Nobody walks in to swap a failed drive or reboot a frozen server. So everything has to run itself. Fully autonomous, self-healing, managed entirely from the ground by software. When a chip dies, you don't fix it. You can't. The whole philosophy flips from repair to replace. If a node fails, you simply route around it and launch a fresh one later. And then there are the threats you don't have on Earth. Radiation constantly bombards the electronics, flipping bits and degrading chips faster than they'd ever wear out down here. Orbital debris, old satellites, fragments, and junk races around the planet fast enough to shred anything in its path. And that cooling problem from earlier? Radiating away the heat of a city-sized supercomputer with nothing but the cold of space to soak it up may be the single biggest wall standing between this idea and reality. So this isn't a solved problem, it's a bet. Here's my honest read. The physics is real. Sunlight is better up there, and computers can clearly run in orbit. We've already watched it happen. But it works on one chip, and a million of them cooling themselves above the planet are separated by a canyon of unsolved engineering and enormous cost. What's not in doubt is the motivation. AI's hunger for power is growing faster than Earth can feed it, and the smartest, richest companies on the planet, SpaceX, Google, and Amazon, are all sprinting in the same direction at the same time. When that happens, it usually means one of two things: a historic breakthrough or a very expensive lesson. Either way, the most important infrastructure of the next decade might not be built on the ground at all. It might be orbiting silently above you, right now, learning. If this rewired how you think about where the future gets built, subscribe, because we're following this race the whole way up. I'll see you in the next one.